mind, I'd never mentioned that there were men as dark as this. Wow, look at that nose. He's just like a pig. He's a monster! Hut!
In today's episode, I'm joined by Nguyen, who is a Vietnamese-American blogger who recently posted an article in Nextshark, or Medium as well, about not criticizing Asian women for dating white men. So my first question for you is, why did you decide to write that article?
So the previous article, I am in the Asian community when it comes to talking about, Asian male masculinity. Now, I felt like it was just right for me to post something like this, because it takes courage to say, hey, Asian women, I don't necessarily encourage you to date outside your race, but for the people that already do, I salute you. And I think that Asian men, true, strong Asian men, don't really have energy to bash these women, you know what I mean, who date outside the race, or, some might even say, joining the winning team. I don't bash these people. What I'm trying to say, which I didn't include in the article, was, how do I better myself? Mm-hmm. How do I strengthen myself and my community to be better? Mm-hmm. And I feel like to be better, first, you have to acknowledge that people love people. And not everyone is, it's not all about white supremacy, and it's not all about, joining like the different sides and being a race traitor. There are good white men out there. And if you're a good man, women are going to want to date you. Mm-hmm. That's the core belief that I had in this article. And in this article, I also talk about why, the dark parts of this, where, white men talk about, the disgusting side of this, which is, white men going to Southeast Asia to sleep with its whores, and just Seattle tech boom, and their affiliation with Korean or Asian whores around that sector, and prostitutes. And I also talk about that, but I also alleviate some weight away from Asian women when it comes to dating. Okay.
I guess from my perspective, I feel like there is a rightful backlash from not just Asian men, but men of color. And one of the examples I want to give are examples of, I think Lily Mack is her name, and Gina Choe, who have, whether it be on Twitter or in America's Next Top Model in Choe's case, have demonized Asian men or Asian people while saying that they prefer white men, and that they prefer guys with yellow fever, white men with yellow fever. There are also many comments on Twitter that show that Asian women are willing to openly discriminate against Asian men while preferring having their preference for white men. So is it not somewhat justified, if you are an Asian man seeing all this, to want to criticize Asian women for their dating preference, if it's not just a racial preference of their own, but they're demonizing you in the process?
I personally have not come across these videos, and I don't think I dwell in these discussions, and it's a shame that these women have to go out of their own way to demonize Asian men. But I personally haven't seen this video, and if it does exist, that's really bad and sad. That sucks. Wow, that's so bad. What kind of video was it?
Well, Gina Choe in America's Next Top Model back in like 2006, she went in the beginning of audition saying, I want to be an Asian model because there's not enough Asian models in Hollywood or whatever, and we need to represent. And she goes on about that, but then talks about how she doesn't like Asian men because they're short. And the clip is cut, but then you see Tyra Banks talking about how, you know, you're talking about how you're pro-Asian, but then you're saying you only date white boys. In the case of Lily Mack, she says, she has a post where she says Asians suck and, you know, white power, basically posting next to like a graffiti symbol, saying that. I want to give you actually some more examples of it because I did pull them up, and I think they're important to bring into this conversation because it does happen a lot. There's an article on Nextshark that talks about, I'm pulling it up right now if I can get this, that talks about how Natalie Tran's documentary looks into white male Asian female couples, and in that article there's a post of Asian woman basically demonizing Asian men. I just want to read them to you, some of them at least. One Asian girl says, Asian guys are getting so bold nowadays, haha. Another one says, man, low-key, don't fuck with Asian guys no more. Most of the ones I know are little tricks with little dicks. I could learn to love Asian guys, but ... they just have small dicks. My classmate who's Asian. And then she says, LMAO, I cry. Asian boys are gross, ew. I can go on and on. This is not like a situation where it's just a few people. It goes so far as that you have Asian women who are married to white supremacists or white nationalists. Asian women who have dated people such as Richard Spencer. My point is this. It's not about every white guy that's dating an Asian girl is obviously objectifying her, and every Asian woman who's dating a white guy is a self-hater. It's that there is this idea that Asian women are, in a sense, thinking that they're marrying up by dating a white man, and that dating their own race is considered to be worse. And that is very offensive to a lot of Asian men, and especially people like me who aren't even in the conversation. Right. You know?
And that's very interesting you say that. I know this exists, but to my knowledge, I feel like it's still the minority. I do agree that there aren't enough voices, strong Asian male voices out there, or just strong Asian voices in general that speak in opposition to this. And that just sucks. And I didn't realize that when I posted the article because, you know, I've already written articles on, you know, Asian masculinity and, you know, how Asian guys can win, you know, if they, you know, visit their, you know, parents' home country or the country where their parents originated from. I feel like they can learn a great deal from that.
Okay. I just want to, again, make you aware that there is that underlying issue, and I think that there are a lot of people who are Asian men who are seeing this, and they want to speak out. Again, you know, we have a world of 7 billion people. You can find somebody, but when you feel as though you're being devalued, whether you're an Asian male or an Asian female, I think you have the right to speak out, which actually gets into my second point of yellow fever. What is your take on that when it comes to Asian women talking about how they feel like they're being objectified by non-Asian men?
My take on that is, yes, it sucks. You know, I think it sucks that, well, I come from a country in Southeast Asia, Vietnam, and the European people come to my country and sleep with its prostitutes and its whores and pay for sex because it's very easy. And yellow fever, to me, in the West or in Europe, basically just means it's the idea of femininity. So Asian women are seen as feminine because they are more quiet, you know, seen as submissive. They're more motherly. They don't raise their voice in you know, the presence of a man, and that can be attractive, you know, as opposed to the masculine women in the West. I'm not just talking about white women. I'm talking about women in general. I don't know if they learned it from the media or if it's just, you know, sewn into the culture, but Western women have become more unattractive over the years because they've become more masculine. So Asian fever, in my opinion, stems from that. You know, men just want, you know, men are attracted to women who are submissive, who will listen to them, and, you know, who they can be men around. And end of story. Period. Whether that be, you know, Eastern Europe, whether that be Ukraine, whether that be, you know, Asian women in general. That's it.
I get that. I guess for me, I'm just curious because Asian women, more than any other race or ethnicity of women that I've seen, can be extremely uptight if you are an non-Asian male, white or not, who likes Asian women. And I've seen some of the articles, particularly posted a couple of years ago, about how it's not okay to like Asian women, how some articles said that they wanted, like you should die if you have yellow fever, something along the lines of that. Don't quote me on that.
I don't think it's that extreme.
I'll put it this way. I interviewed a model named Christiana Tran a couple years ago who talked about this issue about guys who like Asian women. And she had a problem with me liking Asian women, period. She thought I was objectifying them. She thought it was demeaning. Meanwhile, you know, she's got all this makeup on her, which makes her skin look lighter. And she's a model who's Asian. And I'm sorry, but there are going to be people who like you because you're Asian that are men, just like there are black models. And there are men that are going to gravitate towards them because they're black and Hispanic and white. There was nothing that I could say to her that could make it okay for me to like Asian women. I know if I'm an Asian man, that's not necessarily going to be a problem. I know if I'm a rich white man with money, that's not necessarily going to be a problem either. But because I'm Hispanic and I don't, you don't know me, it's not okay. And right. from that standpoint, I understand that there are creepy white men, right, who objectify Asian women. There was a documentary a couple years ago called Seek an Asian Female, who Debbie Lum, the filmmaker, criticized this white guy who was old for having a preference for Asian women. And he got this girl to come in from China. They were going to get married. The Chinese woman, who knew she was being in a documentary for this purpose, didn't have a problem with his fetish, married him anyways. Debbie Lum herself, who's Asian, married to a white guy. It just always seems to me that it's on the terms of Asian women to determine whether or not you're okay. And you don't get a chance to like Asian women if you're black and Hispanic usually, or even white. But if you're rich with money and you're white, or you're Asian, then it's okay. And that's what I have a problem with. When I see articles that are saying that it's not okay, period, and I don't get a chance to be a part of the conversation, yet you, as an Asian woman, are dating only white men or Asian men.
Right.
Okay, then I'm going to clap back. You know what I mean? I have the right to clap back at that point, because I just don't feel like it's fair that I get demonized and I'm not given a chance to express why I have this preference without being thought of as a racist.
Right. No, that's a very interesting point you bring up, and it sort of dehumanizes and it sort of puts everyone into groups. And I was recently talking to my siblings about this, and it's just really, it's the truth. It's a weird truth. It's a very disgusting truth that I feel like more so in the West. I feel like a lot of Asian families, Asian families, they don't demonize white people. And why should they? Right? Why should we demonize anyone? You know what I mean? And I feel like, to some extent, they even worship them. Right? Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely.
And they don't realize they come from the old country, and they don't realize that, you know, the repercussions of, you know, they're just not in the loop. You know, everyone's busy working for, you know, corporations and companies where, you know, white people hold power, right? Mm-hmm. So I feel like a lot of people, Asians from the older generation, they sort of see, you know, whiteness as a way out. You know, they're not going to work, and they're not seeing, you know, black CEOs. Mm-hmm. They're not seeing, you know, Puerto Rican CEOs. They're seeing mostly white CEOs and like managers and bosses. So I feel like, yeah, it's, you know, tribe mentality, like not even tribe mentality, but like trader mentality to think that, like, you know, you're going to let someone in your family marry up. And I think that's what you mean when you say marrying up, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm totally against that. I'm totally against, you know, because you have to remember where I come from. I come from a country where, you know, the French tried to colonize my people. Mm-hmm. I come from a country where, you know, after the French, America tried to come in and colonize my people. Mm-hmm. You know, so, and we fought them off, both of them. You know, so in my country, you know, in my heart, to even the fact, like, just the whole idea of it, I just, like, I am totally empathetic to Asian women dating white men. I'm not against that. I'm empathetic. People love each other. I'm open-minded about that. But me personally, coming from my history and where I come from, I can't stand the idea of, you know, a Vietnamese woman or person ever, you know, marrying, you know, the colonizer or, you know, the people who once were enemies. I just picture, I picture them marrying within their race. I picture them marrying another Vietnamese man who understands their struggles and, you know, who understands their heritage and culture and where they come from. And that's what I believe in. I'm a walking contradiction. I pull from such opposite feelings. You know what I mean? Like, as much as I want to believe that, you know, if I were to see like an Asian and white couple today, later on today, I'd be empathetic. You know what I mean? It's really tough for me.
To add on to your point, the anger comes from, at least I'm not Asian, but from my perspective, it comes from the idea that, let's say you're Japanese and you're anti-black because somebody you heard who was a friend that, let's say, was Korean, owned a store and robbed that store, and every person that's ever robbed a store that you know of was black. You as an Asian person will demonize all black men and say this is why we don't date black men because they're uneducated, they're thugs. But when the white man decides to drop a bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki and wipe out millions upon millions of Japanese people, that doesn't resonate with Asian women as them being the enemy or why we don't date white men. Point being that whenever, and I'm not speaking about Asian men here, I'm just saying black and Hispanic men compared to white men. Whenever black and Hispanic men do something negative, whether it be overrepresented by the media, because sometimes they just overrepresent things that put us down, or actually what happened, Asians, particularly Asian women, are quick to use that as a reason to say, look, this is why I'm not interested. But white men who are in power, like Woody Allen, who are known to have abused, or allegedly have abused their stepchildren, they're married to a Korean woman who was their stepdaughter at one point. It just, you forgive the white man for whatever for his transgressions, which are horrific. but you can't forget the black or Hispanic man.
Well, you have to understand that I don't know the exact word for it. I think, yes, no, I don't know the exact word for it, but women in general marry, they're not as prideful as men. You have to understand that. You have to understand that in the past, in the long, long past in history, when a tribe took over another tribe, they would kill off the men and they would take the women. You understand?
Mm-hmm.
They would take the women. So the women would switch sides. So it's very easy for women to switch sides and, like, you know, basically just become, you know, part of a different race, part of a different tribe.
Mm-hmm.
But a man would never let that happen. A man would die before that happens. You understand?
Yeah.
So that's the history of human nature. That's it. So women, if they see something in another person, or in a man, that's beneficial to them, they're going to marry that person. And it may be to, you know, as a psychological thing to, you know, have better offspring, to, you know, save their species somehow. You know, it might be that kind of thinking. You know, that, I guess, if that answers, or, you know, if that helps to add to the conversation in any way.
I mean, if that's true, and I'm not saying it is or isn't. I mean, I think it's to an extent. I don't respect that. Particularly,
right.
Going back again to when you're talking about, as an Asian woman, you're demonizing white men and then just going ahead to dating them. You're talking about people like Brenda Song, who date people like Macaulay Culkin. You know that Macaulay Culkin, if he was black, would not be with Brenda Song. Period. He'd be thought of as a crackhead junkie. But because he's white, his whiteness puts him as an equivalent to somebody like me who's busted his ass to make something of himself. And I don't appreciate that. I don't appreciate it when these are the same women who will demonize me for saying, hey, my ex-girlfriend was Asian, for example, and they'll flip out. But you have a white person like that who may have dated nothing but Asian women, and they don't blink. They don't blink. I have a problem with that.
Hypocrisy. It's hypocrisy.
It's hypocrisy. And one last thing that I want to point out again is that we're always talking about white and Asian men. I don't want to say that Asian men aren't shortchanged by white supremacy when it comes to Asian women. They certainly are. I thought it was just black and Hispanic. I've noticed how Asian women are quick to demonize Asian men, and I've mentioned that. But what's your take on the fact that black and Hispanic men are never mentioned in the conversation? Are you for that, black and Hispanic men dating Asian women? Do you think that there's a rift there, or there's a sense of unity that I'm not seeing? What's your take?
My take is this. You know, it all stems back to, you know, the dinner table, and which is why it disgusts me. And we have to talk about the truth, right? So the truth is that when certain families, I'm just saying in the US. Just saying the US because that's all I know. Mm-hmm. I don't know about Australia. I don't know about New Zealand. I don't know about Europe. But I do know about the US. And in the US, when families, you know, sit down to have dinner, and, you know, Asian families, white families, Puerto Rican families, black families, Jewish families, what are they encouraging? What are they discouraging? What are they talking about? We would never know, right? But we can only see through their actions, right? Through their actions, through their disapproval of something, we can start to, you know, get clues on what people talk about at home. What pisses me off, and which is why I you know what, I'm empathetic. I stand right in the middle. Like, I don't want to be that angry Asian guy that's just, like, against everything on Twitter. You know, that's why I even wrote the article, because I don't care. I don't care. Merit wins. If you're good, you win. I'm a big believer in that. I'm a big believer in if you win, you win. If you're good, you win. So going back to your point, what do people talk about in their families and why I'm a little bit pissed off about it? I feel like in a lot of households, families say, "Oh, like I don't think you should marry like a black person or a Hispanic person or an Asian person." I feel like that's what's happening because I see a lot of shows, and I've heard a lot from certain family members and certain people in the Asian community whose, you know, their parents have lashed out from them dating someone outside the race, or, you know, certain Jewish families getting really upset and angry that, you know, their daughter or son is like, you know, dating someone outside the race. This is a real conversation that people are having with their children at home. You understand? And, you know, within Asian families, I feel like it's not looked down upon to, you know, date like a white person. It's kind of like, it's not looked down upon, but it's kind of just like, you know what I mean? It's like, it's not the best. You know what I mean? And then I feel like, you know, when it comes to like Hispanic people or black people or, you know, minorities, it's sort of just like, that's a big no-no. Yeah, I am pissed off about that. I am pissed off about that. And I also am pissed off at the ignorance of Asian Americans, you know, thinking that, like, you know, other races are better than they. You know, other people are better than them. And I feel like I'm writing an article right now, you know, the Asian men are like apples who fell too far from the tree. And especially in Asian, you know, in Asian Americans in America. You know, we've fallen too far from our countries. And we don't even know who we are anymore. You know what I mean? And that's why I write a lot about heritage and, you know, returning, having a vacation back in your home country just to see how everything is, to see how, you know, strong your people are and to see how beautiful your people are, you know, instead of just hating yourself.
I'll make this one point, then I'll just let you add. Going back to the idea that when we discuss yellow fever or white fever or the dating preferences of Asian women, what I've noticed constantly is this idea that it ends at white and Asian. And people say to me, well, that doesn't mean that black or Hispanic men don't have a shot, or that Asian women don't date black and Hispanic men. I know people who are black and Hispanic who are dating Asian women. But when it comes to the mindset of Asian women, to me it's a sign of disrespect that we don't get put part in the conversation, and that when we want to discuss what we have to do to get into part of the conversation, whether it be to get into Harvard or to know an extreme amount of things about Asian culture that we know that Asian women wouldn't give a damn about when it comes to our culture and understanding where we come from, whether it be dealing with racist Asian parents. Asian women aren't talking about that. Very rarely. And to me, it's a sign of disrespect that you're ready to acknowledge white people more than you are black and Hispanic men who are really busting their ass to try and get in the radar. And there are examples in my head that I can think of people who have suffered who are black and Hispanic. I'm not going to get into all of that. All I know is that I'm tired of feeling as though I have to have things of status, whether it be a good education or a high-paying job or a car or live in a nice neighborhood, to get on the radar of Asian women who say that I'm objectifying them the minute that I approach them, but don't give a damn to know enough about me to understand where I'm coming from.
That's just the truth, my man.
It is the truth, but I get that it's the truth, but it's time to talk about it.
It is time to talk about it.
It is time to talk about it. And because Asian women have opened the conversation about feeling like they're being objectified and devalued by white men. Okay, let's talk about how you're devaluing Black and Hispanic men. I'm tired of being disrespected by you. I'm tired of them playing the victim all the time. And that's why I reached out to you, because I feel as though, whether it be through interviews like this or trying to post articles myself, because I do journalism, we need more people like me to bring this part of the conversation into the mainstream. Because it's not okay how we're just constantly ignored. It's not okay. Because we're under the same situation that you guys are, in terms of being oppressed, in terms of being colonized, in terms of being devalued. But Asians are usually siding with themselves or white people. And that's what I see. So, you know, I want to bring that up. And just because it's true doesn't mean that we don't have the right to say something about it.
That's interesting. You know, I feel like that's very interesting. You know, I feel like there's a chip on the shoulder kind of thing. I agree.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what it is. You know, it could be that, you know, just history, right?
Mm-hmm.
History and society. You know, the U.S. is right now number one. You know, European countries are always like richer,
Mm-hmm.
you know, colonizers, and I feel like in the West they hold, you know, high positions. So, you know, that influences things,
Mm-hmm.
and especially, you know, back in the day to, you know, present day, you know, a lot of white men own the media corporations.
Mm-hmm.
They own BBC, you know, they own Fox and everything. And when you're in those rooms and you've got to make the calls, you know, you can make the calls. Even in Hollywood, you're going to make yourself look like the best.
Mm-hmm.
You know, all the superheroes are going to be white. And it was even that way in ancient Africa, you know, where, you know, the remains of, you know, the great African people, you know, they broke the noses off of a lot of the monuments and statues because the noses were much wider and much more African and black. And yeah, I feel like that has a lot to do with it too. And, you know, me being an Asian man in America, you know, Mr. Miyagi and Jackie Chan, Bruce Lee, and, you know, the Chinese food guy, that was just so heightened in the media that, you know, people just didn't want to associate themselves with the losers, you know, and, you know, at least black people and, you know, Latinos, they have some sort of positive representation in the media as far as like Hollywood. And, you know, and by all means, I know we're on the same page. We're on the same side of the fence. You know, it's like, oh, we want to get into Hollywood and, you know, really show people that, like, you know, Asians aren't losers. I've never really seen myself as a loser like that. You know what I mean? And, you know, until I grew a little bit older, where I'm realizing that, like, dude, like, a lot of Hispanics, a lot of blacks, a lot of, you know, Asian men are, like, hurt. You know, they're not confident. They have low self-esteem, and it stems a lot from society, from the society they're in. And, you know, I do my best. I do my best to, you know, a lot of Asian guys come up to me, they DM me, they take me out for coffee, and, you know, they talk to me about this stuff. They're like, you know, like, why do I feel like I have low self-esteem? Why do I feel like I have a chip on my shoulder? You know, like, why can't I, you know, date the girls I want to date? Boom. You know what I mean? And I tell them that it's a chip on the shoulder thing. It's a society thing, and you have to work through that. You know, as immigrants, period, you know, we just have to work harder. We have to be more. I think that's what you're trying to say. I think what you're trying to say is that as minorities, you know, living in this country, America, we just have to do 10 times more than the average Caucasian person, right? Where, you know, you don't have to do that much. You just have to show up, be Caucasian, and, you know, you've got it. And I know that Caucasian people know that they have that privilege and they have that power too. You know what I mean? It's just not talked about. Yeah. I do my best, man. I do my best to acknowledge, be aware that, you know, of my, you know, shortcomings, just being, you know, a minority in America, and I accept that. And I'm okay with that. I'm not a person who, you know, talks over the truth or is blind to the truth. I look at what's happening, I accept it, and then I just figure out ways to, you know, go around it, ways to win.
If you are, whether you're Asian, Hispanic, or Black, and you're seeing, you know, Asian or Black or Hispanic women going for white men over you, and you know it's partially because of white supremacy, how do you combat that? What do you do in that situation?
What do I do in that situation?
Or people, what do you suggest?
What do I suggest?
Yeah.
I suggest, I really stress this. I suggest that you don't lean on your race. You know, like, I used to want to be, this is a true story, by the way, for everyone listening. I wanted to be Korean so bad because everyone loved Koreans. You know, there were, you know, I wanted to be Chinese. I wanted to be Japanese so bad when I was a teenager. You know, and I learned about Japanese history before I learned about Vietnamese history. And, you know, I hated myself. You know what I mean? I'm just not even talking about white supremacy. I'm talking about just Asian supremacy, just within Asia. You know what I mean? And, you know, we were the minorities, and we kind of still are. And Vietnam is just such a poverty-stricken country. But I realized that that's me. I can't change that about me. You know what I mean? And I look at when I went back to Vietnam, I realized how special Vietnam really is. And I realized I learned a lot about my history. And I'm currently writing an article about it. And the question you asked was, you know, what was your question again?
What is your suggestion for Asian, Black, and Hispanic men who see Asian, Black, and Hispanic women going to white men? How do you combat, like, white supremacy in this country in terms of dating? What do you do to combat that?
Right. So I wouldn't lean, you know, I wouldn't lean on me being an Asian person. I wouldn't lean on me being a Vietnamese person. You know, I would be more Vietnamese. I would be more proud to be, you know, where I come from. I wouldn't wait until my country is powerful. You know, I wouldn't wait until, you know, Blacks and Hispanics are, you know, truly the number ones. You know, I wouldn't wait until the tables turn. I wouldn't wait. It might not even be in this lifetime that, you know, you, Raphael, you know, the Puerto Ricans win, and then, you know, all of a sudden, you know, every race of women is just like, oh my God, like, I can't believe, you know, I had these preferences before, but now I really, really am attracted to Puerto Rican men. Listen, man, I'm not going to, for me, I'm also not going to wait until the day where all the women in the world are like, Asian men are number one, you know what I mean? And, you know, I only want to date Asians. I'm not going to wait for that day. That's what I realized. I'm not going to lean, me, Kevin, I'm not going to lean on this big machine, which is called Asian or Vietnam or, you know, whatever it is. I'm going to rely on myself. Because what we do when we rely on being a Black person, rely on being an Asian person, is we're giving away our power. We're becoming weaker. We're that person who shows up at the bar or at the club that's like, hey, I'm so-and-so. Can I come into the bar? And you're allowed in the bar. Just because of, you know, who you are. You're relying on your race. You're relying on this big machine to win. And what I'm saying is, okay, everyone else is winning, right? And this is what we can do. We can lean on ourselves. We can become better machines ourselves. Instead of pointing fingers to race or, you know, these other huge factors that we can't control, we can control ourselves. We can become better versions of ourselves. We can be more masculine. We can look better. We could eat better. We could talk better. And that's it. End of story.
Fair enough. I'm in the middle. Just that to your point, I'm in the middle. You can't wait all day to get to number one, but I think there is something to be said in acknowledging it and not acting like race is dead, because when Trump got elected, he made it very obvious that race is still very real, in America at least. So, you know, just make people aware of the situation while trying to do your best is how I look at it. But in any case, I thank you for your time. Unless you had anything else to add, you can go ahead right now.
Do you have any other questions? I feel like, you know, we can talk about it a little more if you want.
There's something really disturbing for me, and the reason why I talk about Asian and white male couples so much, Asian female white male couples so much, is because we can't say it's not a problem if there are white supremacists or white nationalists or overtly racist white men dating and marrying Asian women. Like, what? And honestly, what the fuck is that?
Really happening?
Richard Spencer has talked about how he's dated Asian women. John Derbyshire, who is he's part of the alt-right, he's talked about how you need to stay away from black people if you're Asian or white because it can save your lives. He's married to a Chinese woman for 31 years. He's demeaned his half Chinese, half white children, saying that they're a half Chinese peasant, basically.
Hey, that's something that is very interesting to me. See, I posted this in the half Asian, half white community, the Hapas community on Reddit, and I got a lot of backlash for that. And for anyone listening that's a part of that community, that was not my intent. Like, I totally feel for you guys, and I'm sorry. I just realized the context of that Reddit, and I just, I just posted something that was, against the beliefs of people on that Reddit. But let's not be headline readers, and I really wish that you guys went in and read that article instead of, But I am so empathetic to how half Asians feel. Mm-hmm. Especially if they have fathers that hate their mothers, and that they can't, be completely white, and they can't be accepted 100% if they go back to Asia and be 100% Asian. I'm totally empathetic to that, and just moving forward from there, I feel like half babies are Asian babies. And I feel like families need to do a better job in teaching children, Asian or half Asian, children. I feel like families need to do better jobs at teaching them about their cultural heritage.
The Hapa community is where I got a lot of the information in regards to white supremacists or white nationalists either having a fetish for Asian women, which obviously it's a fetish because it doesn't make any sense if you're a white nationalist or supremacist, and Asian women marrying or dating these people. I know you're Asian Tiger, not directly, but I know he has a lot to do with that, and he was a part of Natalie Tran's documentary. That community is very vicious towards Asian female white male couples for a lot of good reasons. One of the reasons why is because they see this stuff, and I think not necessarily that they're, if you post, I don't know if you posted an article about John Derbyshire and they misinterpreted what you were trying to say, but I would say if they got mad at you because you posted that article, it's because they understand sometimes I'd say even better than me, the relations between white male, Asian female, and how it's basically a psychosexual, like really twisted thing sometimes. And they're the byproducts of it as half Asian, half white males. Nobody's talking about this side of the story. So whenever somebody outside of that comes in and seems to come in correct, they're ready to jump on somebody. Right. I get that as somebody who, and not because I'm half white or half Asian, but I get that as somebody who is black or Hispanic who feels like they're getting the brunt of the pain that white men have placed on Asian women while seeing these same Asian women turn to white men. The mono-minority was placed on them by the white man. The submissive idea of, of Asian women just always being submissive and wanting to take care of their husbands, that was white men trying to get away from white feminism. Okay? That was all placed on them by white men. I didn't place that on them. I didn't come in saying you're a China doll. But the people that you say are doing that to you, you run to, you powder your face to make yourselves look like them, you do eye surgery to widen your eyes to make yourselves look more like them, and you're putting it on me? No, take it out on them, just like I take it out on Asian women for treating me like I'm second class and that I need to get into a good school or have a good paying job to get on the radar. I'm gonna call you out on that if you're an Asian woman, because I'm tired of getting that. I'm tired of getting the brunt of that.
What I can't change, what I'll never be able to change, is that I'm an Asian man, and that's not a bad thing. Mm-hmm. It just seems like a bad thing in this country when the majority is white. Mm-hmm. I'll forever be a second-class citizen. Mm-hmm. I will never, ever, not in this lifetime, I think, be treated as an American person. Mm-hmm. And I feel like a lot of Asian women forget that. I feel like a lot of Asian women forget the fact that people still ask, where are you from? Oh, I'm from, Massachusetts or whatever. No, like, where are you really from? You know what I mean? That is something that's never, ever going to change. And just the fact that that question still exists, I just know that, we're still second-class citizens. We'll never be considered fully American. And, people who, live in this fantasy where they think they're, fully American and they think they're just totally, totally American, and it's never going to happen. You know what I mean? Like,
not if you
and
try
I've
to
tried.
No.
I've tried to be, like, I don't have an accent. Mm-hmm. I speak very American, and I speak fluently, but people still think I'm Chinese. Everywhere I go, California, I'm in New York, like such a metropolitan city, and people still ask me where I'm from, and it's just crazy. And, piggybacking on, what you were saying, yeah, I think that a lot of Asian women are traitors, and they have this belief all of a sudden that, they're Americans, and they just leave their culture and they leave their heritage and they leave everything behind just to forget about it, just to forget about the fact, just the idea of them, being a part of, like a minority race. And they think that's going to change once they switch sides, which I'm empathetic to. I'm so empathetic. Like, I don't hate them. I love people. I'm such a big-hearted person. You know what I mean? Like, I can't really hate anyone, but that's a part of the truth. Mm-hmm. Is that they think that, like, they might be saved, that they'll hire, they'll up their caste system. Mm-hmm. But everyone's going to see them as just, the truth always wins. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And you could win the short game, but like the majority of people are still going to look down on you because you're an Asian person.
By the way, your camera, and I might have to change this for the editing, have your audio completely fine, but the video, it's choppy, and like that's why I might take a while to respond, because I don't know if you've stopped talking, so I might just have to do straight audio sometimes, or just all of it, because it's like a 2-second delay.
Oh, okay.
But I have all the audio. The audio's fine. No, you're just saying, like, no matter what, you're still Asian.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing, but in this country, it can be considered a bad thing if you make it Asian on your terms. You know, if the Asian today is supposed to be the quiet, submissive model minority. If you want to be the Asian that's masculine and is, you know, funny and unapologetic, not like Ken Jeong, if I'm saying his last name right, Asian funny guy who is supposed to be like the weird person next to the white guy. I'm talking about like actually funny, you know, independent, strong Asian man. That's not okay, because that's not the narrative right now. And if you go against that, then you're a problem. So Asian on the terms of how the United States wants to define Asian, just as how black in the United States is not supposed to be educated, is not supposed to be the leader. They're supposed to be in jail. You know, it's okay to be that. It's not okay to be educated. It's not okay to be independent and strong and calm, by the way. You know, you have to be loud if you're black. You have to be angry if you're black. Stuff like that. And I feel like when I see Asians going to whites, it's not so much that I have a problem with Asian white couples. I don't individually. Like, that's ridiculous. I'm going to say just because you're married to a white dude, then you're a racist. Like, that doesn't make any sense. But if I see that non-white people are in this struggle that whites aren't, and some poor white people are in the struggle too, but like, for the most part, Caucasians aren't in the struggle. And Asians have decided, well, you know what? Because the white man's throwing me a bone, I'm going to go run to him. That hurts all of us. It hurts Asians included, because it pits us against each other, which is what halts progress. If one side, whether it be black or Hispanic or Asian, because there are Hispanic people, Latino people who decide to go white, like Charlie Sheen and Cameron Diaz, you know, to further their careers. If you have that, that's going to hurt everybody, because it says, hey, they figured it out. Why can't you just do it? You know? And whether it be just dating or in general, I see a lot of that. And I don't know. From my perspective, I'm just angry because, as you can probably tell, I've seen a lot of it firsthand when it comes to Asian women and dating preferences. And I'm not going to deny it. I have a lot of anger towards Asian women about this, and I want to let it out. So that's why I want to talk about it. But I don't know. I guess it just bothers me, not just because of dating, but because of the fact that I know that when one group decides to go towards the winning team, it hurts everybody. You know, and it causes problems.
Yeah, I was angry. I feel like there was something on like Tinder released like Asian, not like women's dating preferences, and Asian men and black women were at the bottom of the list, and it's very interesting. This was released, I feel like, a few years ago, and I remember being really hurt and just really angry that, like, I was like, and then I feel like as time went by, I became just more numb to the facts, and just, it was just like, all right, what can I do on like an individual basis? Yeah. You know what I mean? Instead of like being like a statistic. You know what I mean? And that's what really changed. What really changed for me was when I went back to my country, Vietnam. And, I stayed there for, 4 months. And I really, played soccer, and I just hung out with, Vietnamese men. and I learned more about myself, and I learned more about what masculinity is and what being a man is. And that's different, just so much different from, you know, masculinity in the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
And I came back prouder, you know, more masculine, and just not really giving a fuck about the statistics anymore, and about just dating preferences or whatever. I just really didn't care about that anymore, which is why I'm just so surprised when like Asian men are just being so salty about the statistics and the facts and just society, and not looking at themselves.
I don't know. I get that. It's just, coming back to your article, I never saw an article until I guess Eliza Romero said something about Asian women actually just sticking to white men, but I never saw an article talking about how Asian women should stop bashing people who like Asian men. I mean, who like Asian women, and just say, you know, give them a chance. Never that. It was always, hey, you got to be careful, you got to watch out, stuff like that. And, you know, it bothers me that I see Asian women being defended when non-Asian men weren't defended. You know, I don't know if you saw Natalie Tran's documentary, but
I didn't.
You did? Okay. Well, she did.
Did not.
Okay. Well, I'll just say that when I saw it, it came off as somebody that felt like she didn't know where it was coming from. This whole hatred for people who date white men who are Asian women because she's married to a white man. This idea that, you know, we should have a healthy dialogue and a healthy conversation. Where was my healthy conversation? Where was my healthy dialogue? I never got that. But now all of a sudden, because you're getting called names, you're getting, you know, the saltiness from non-Asian men who you might have neglected in the dating process. Now you want to have a conversation? Like, no. You know, from my perspective, I can't speak for Asian men, but from my perspective, I don't want to have a conversation with Asian women because I've had enough of their lies. I've had enough of their, you know, of them twisting things to make it seem like they're the victim. You know, you're part of this problem. Not individually, but collectively, because it's always the Asian women that are talking about Asian American issues that just so happen to be dating white men, and are talking about, you know, creepy white guys but happen to be dating white men. It's always that. Like, enough of the conversation about, you know, particularly because you never gave me the chance, going back to like Christiana Trong, to like Asian women without being considered to be a racist or, you know, some kind of fetishizer or whatever. When I've tried to bust my ass, like, no, I want to make you feel just as uncomfortable as you've made me feel. I want to humiliate you just as like you humiliated me. I want to make you feel just as awkward about your dating preferences as you've made me, without giving you any consideration for your situation. This isn't the time, from my perspective, to look at it as, oh, well, you know, maybe they were just in love. No, screw that. No, you're a white worshiper. You're all white worshipers. Because to you, not you, but Asian women 5 years ago, I was just chasing Asian women because I wanted a tight little submissive Asian girl. That's it. So you know what? You're a white worshiper no matter what. How does it feel? That's how I feel about it. I don't want to have a conversation with Asian women about it. I don't. And that's how angry I am about it. And I bet you, particularly within the Hapa community on Reddit, but Asian men in general, that's exactly how they feel when it comes to Asian women, because they're tired of their lies and their games.
Yeah, you know what? It's so sad, and I feel empathetic and I feel sad for the Asian women that have to put down men of their own race. Mm-hmm. You know, I feel so bad for them that they have to do that, because you don't have to. You don't have to put Asian men down and people of your own. You know what? That's just another example of, you know, they've fallen so far from the tree, and, you know, they've forgotten where they've come from, and they've forgotten about history, and they've forgotten about who they are. And that's sad. I'm only empathetic to that. I don't hate them. I just feel sorry for them. And I feel like they're a minority. I don't feel like they're allowed to speak for all Asian women, because the Asian women, you know, who are in my household, who I know, you know, are very pro-Asian. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So.
No, I get that. And I mean, it's honestly better to live your life not having that kind of anger, because it does eat you up inside, and it does change you into a different type of person that probably isn't good. But I don't know. If nothing else, I just want people to understand why some men feel this way and have turned this way. Not that it justifies like saying cruel things to other people, but when you put into context like what certain people have had to go through, when it comes to dealing with white supremacy and Asian women going to white men or just sticking to Asian men and feeling as though you're a black and Hispanic man, you're not even mentioned when it comes to anti-blackness in Asian communities and Asian racist Asian parents legitimately telling Asian women to stay away from black and Hispanic men. They'll disown them if they date a black or Hispanic man. Like, from my perspective, I just don't have the same empathy. You know, I don't have the same sympathy. I'm out here just to show what it is and be unapologetic about it. Because I tried to be very nice about it. I tried to be incremental in terms of trying to show, look, come on guys, you know, we have something bad too here. You know, we're not necessarily getting treated too nicely, but nobody listened, you know. And I want to be a part of that wave of people who want to talk, who want to clap back at Asian women. And it's okay if people don't necessarily agree with that, or if you don't look at it the same way. That's perfectly fine. I have no problem with that. All I ask is to give us the same level of platform and time to dish out our anger as Asian women were given a couple of years ago when they wanted to dish out their anger when it came to yellow fever. That's all I ask. I think some of us have earned that.
You know, it's another thing. Like, since I don't know if you've been to any other countries, I just feel like Asian women in America, you know, they've gotten so far, you know, from their culture, and they're just so immersed in American culture that they're completely different from, you know, Asian people, you know, overseas. And, you know, if you, Raphael, ever get the chance to, you know, travel and go to Asia, Southeast Asia, or just Northeast or whatever, I feel like you, after traveling and after having gone to those countries, you know, to date Asian women, I feel like I would really like to hear, you know, your perspective on, you know, Asian women in Asia as opposed to Asian women in America.
I can give it to you right now. I was in China this summer.
Yeah.
There were very nice Asian people there who weren't a part of it, you know, and knew about it and were like, no, we're not a part of that. But there were some microaggressions. I don't like using that word, but it was microaggressions that I heard and had to deal with from a Asian woman that I was, you know, just looking at, seeing if I could just like talk to have a cup of coffee, because I wasn't going to be there for too long. It was only 2 months.
Right.
We have a conversation. It's something called English Corner. I don't know if you know what that is, but it's basically where Asian people or China,
like a language exchange.
Yeah, yeah. And I met this girl over there, and we were talking for a little bit. And then she just blurts out of nowhere, looking straight at me. She's like, "Oh yeah, I'm going to USC in the fall, but I'm worried because, you know, there's a huge Mexican population there." Okay. I got another girl who was in our program saying to be white is to be beautiful in China. She might have just been saying that to bring up the fact of what it's, you know, whiteness is a sign of beauty. I get that, but it didn't seem to her like that was wrong. She was just like saying, "Yo, yeah, that's just what it is over here, and I don't see anything wrong with it." There was another situation where I took a photo, a professional photo, and the editor, who wasn't a Chinese woman, decided to lighten my skin tone, just out of nowhere, and gave me the edited copy. So, and finally, you know, I heard from one of the people in the program said, you know, I heard what you were thinking about Asian women, but if you date somebody who's Chinese, like I'm sure you can date somebody who's an Asian girl once you like get a PhD. I'm getting my master's degree at Harvard. Like, what the fuck what do you mean I need to get a PhD? Just a PhD to get a girl? to get an Asian girl? Like, why does an Asian girl think that they have the right to demand from anybody a PhD? And why is it that you look at me and you say I need a PhD? Because I know a lot of white men who don't even have high school diplomas that have dated Asian women.
Experienced that. I'm pretty sure it's not like that. I mean, like, you know, I feel like just because you're in like a foreign exchange, you know, thing, and like, no, I just feel like if you were there a little bit longer, I don't think, maybe not Chinese, but I don't know.
I get it. It's not everybody. It's not everybody. But I'm just saying that it wasn't necessarily rosy when I was there. And because I was unapologetic in saying, like, look, I know what you guys think of me, and I don't appreciate it, it wasn't necessarily a fun experience being there for 2 months, because they knew that I was talking about it, and they didn't like me talking about it. Even though I knew that a lot of them was saying the things and believing the things that I had a problem with in the first place. It wasn't everybody. Again, there were some Asian girls who directly were asked, would you date a black or Hispanic dude? No problem. I don't have a problem with it. I don't care. You know, and I believed them. And there were very nice Asian women who were there that treated me very kindly. I do not want to make it seem like I was in China for 2 months and everybody was out to get me. Right. I met some very, 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 very nice Asian people, or Chinese people, I should say, when I was there. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. And who honestly were even hurt by the fact that I thought that they were, this is what I thought of them, because they weren't like that. And they were hurt to see that Americans thought that, or an American thought so little of them that they would never think of a person who wasn't Chinese as their equal. They were hurt by that because that's not how they felt. I felt that too, but it wasn't Disneyland.
Right.
It wasn't Disneyland by any stretch.
To hurt their defense, and in my defense too, I feel like a lot of Caucasian people come to my country, and it's not rainbows and butterflies either. Mm-hmm. It's like, it's interesting. That's all I gotta say. It's very interesting. When I was living there, Vietnamese people still see everyone as an outsider. Mm-hmm. Everyone as an outsider. We even call them like outside country. Anyone who doesn't look like us is outside country. That's the name for it, Mm-hmm. And that's it. It's very interesting, like how, when you take yourself out of America, all the different things you can learn, and you learn that, not everyone views you the same way as they do in America. Mm-hmm. It's very interesting.
I mean, there's just a lot of work to be done for all of us.
I hear you, man.
For all of us. And, I appreciate you coming here and listening to my side of the story, because, a lot of people don't necessarily want to face like somebody who is not Asian talking about how Asian women or Asian people in general devalue them, because especially if you don't do that, it's hard to hear that. So I want to thank you for doing that, because it's not easy from your perspective to hear somebody come with such anger and say that. But at the same time, I need to bring it out into the light, and I hope that things get better in the future. I hope that as I continue to have experiences with Asian people, whether it be in Asia or Asia or America, I can go forward not with this anger that I have and alleviate some of what's happened to me in the past and not look at it such a negative light. But until then, buckle up, because I'm going to continue to investigate why there's so many white people dating Asian women in spite of white men being apparently so creepy. Because I hope that I answered at least some of your questions, and I hope that I gave you at least some perspective into the Asian community. Mm-hmm. I know not every family is like that, but I feel like most are in America, and it's just a weird culture thing we have here in America, and America's got a long way to go, period. Mm-hmm. In terms of
dealing with, you know, having conversations about the real things such as race, and, you know, white worship, things like that. You know, we've got a long way to go. And even in terms of Asian pride, you know, being, you know, okay with being Asian and being happy and being prideful, and, you know, we've got a long way to go in that too. And in educating, you know, people of Asian descent, that, you know, just educating them in general about their culture and where they come from, and the certain special aspects of, you know, being an Asian person. And I feel like that's not talked about in the media. And as the media is changing from, you know, having just, you know, the old white men in Hollywood being the gatekeepers, and we're seeing, you know, Netflix and Hulu and just other channels of media, you know, that we can portray, you know, Asian Americans or minorities in a different light. And we can really have a voice through, you know, the, you know, recent social networking such as Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. And I look forward to that, man.